Hello, my name is Christina. I'm the producer of Siren Songs, and I'm here with Megan, another one of our lovely librettists.
Hey, it's so good. I'm so glad to talk to you. It's so nice to have this time.
Great, great. All right. First off, how did you originally decide to start, writing text for opera, writing text for art songs? What was your journey up to that point?
I started out in theater as a playwright. Before I came to opera pretty late in life. I already had an established career. I had done over 100 plays all over the world that I'd written that I'd seen on stage, and I'd enjoyed watching opera, but I never thought it was for me. And then my sister became a classical composer and she started working in vocal music and she started working in opera. And through her eyes, through her lens, through that exposure, I started to see that there was so much happening and so much energy and so many vibrant stories in the field. And she suggested that I apply for the American Opera Initiative at WNO. And I was able to go there. And my first project, I got to work under the mentorship of Mark Campbell, who showed me the scope of what was possible in this medium. And I just absolutely fell in love with the collaboration with composers and steering that ship together. And then the incredible experience of getting to sit in a room and hear a live singer bring all of that to life. It was magic. And I've just, as much as I could get of it ever since that moment. So that's how I ended up here.
Awesome, awesome. So when you're first like going at a text, and obviously there are things like commissions and things that sort of influence like what you're going to write about, but what things inspire you in the writing process? Like, do you have like influences in literature, influences in music, anything that sort of like comes together to, help you with your creative process whenever you're considering a text?
Yeah. I mean, certainly every text is different. A lot of the joy of this work for me is getting really immersed in the music of the composer I'm working with and seeing, what's suggested by that. But every time I show up with everything I've ever read or seen, and my style in general is very influenced by a mixture of highbrow and lowbrow. I have a lot of pop culture energy behind my work, and a lot of humor, and a lot of play, and a lot of brightness. My primary literary influences, the first book I ever read, like many of us, was Hop on Pop by Dr. Seuss, right? And the book I've read the most time is Ulysses by James Joyce. I've probably read that cover to cover about 10 times. And even though they're so different, they share this sense of language, not just for story, but language as a texture, language as an experience, language as its own palette. And so that's the skeleton of everything I do, is trying to create something that holds not just symbolic meaning, but experiential embodied meaning as well. So those are a couple of the things that pop to mind. But for this project, especially, thinking about sirens and the mythology of sirens and the history of sirens, I do a lot of like pro-feminist retelling or reworking of canonical myth and story, specifically sort of deconstructing Western culture to try to move us out of a difficult past and into a future that we'd actually want to live in, right?
Yeah, into a
So
brighter future.
exactly. And being very aware that every project I make is an attempt to rebalance the canon of operatic and art song work to be more reflective of the actual human experience as opposed to a very narrow segment, right? So I'd worked with Siren mythology before. I did in my theater career, I did a one-woman retelling of Homer's Odyssey, which is one of our most dominant like siren myths. So I was definitely like deep into siren lore and looking at the history of those portrayals and how have they shown up on television, how have they shown up in movies, how have they shown up in books, and thinking about, okay, what can I add to this conversation?
Definitely, definitely. And I think that it's very appropriate, especially when you consider how the operatic canon, like it does have all of these like quote unquote feminine voices, but feminine voices more in the lens of a man or a man. You can clearly tell when a man is writing a woman versus, like when it's coming from something that is a very lived experience or, that aspect. So I think that, you know, especially considering like the canon that we're kind of coming from in terms of opera, I think that it's awesome that like part of your work is, recontextualizing those sort of historical works like the Odyssey and like kind of looking at it from this more modern perspective. I think it's awesome. So Um, so you have a varied background of for writing for opera, for theater, and even video games. So how does your approach change, or how does it not change whenever you're kind of approaching each of these genres? I'm especially curious about the video games aspect.
A huge piece of loving to work in so many different mediums is thinking about, okay, when the audience comes to this format, in this moment, in this medium, what do they need? What are they hoping for? What do they expect? What's going to give them joy and keep them coming back? And what do they not know that they can get here that I
Mhm.
can give them? That'll be a nice surprise. You know, you're always trying to find that balance. A lot of it has to do with how much time have they promised me. In video games, you're getting 10 seconds of somebody's life usually between levels, right? So you're going, okay, how am I going to deliver the most value, the most joy, the most meaning in that 10 seconds, right?
Yeah.
And something for me moving into opera from theater. In theater, you know, it's the same speed as we talk is the speed that theater happens. And in opera and in art song, there's this elongation of time.
Yeah.
And so every single syllable has to carry weight, has to have elasticity, or it all goes slack. So there's so much discipline, there's so much rigor, right? So in some ways, writing for video games where you have 10 seconds of attention, ooh, that rigor is great training for opera. It might not be the most traditional path, but I would absolutely recommend it.
Definitely, definitely. And I like what you're saying. Like it's you got to make those seconds count because you know it's like, okay, well, we're moving on with the gameplay and everything. We only have like however so long. That's a good point. Um, so part of what you do is also coaching new writers and the next generation of writers. So when you're helping coach like newbie writers, what are some of the things you think are important for them to remember? What are some things that you sort of emphasize whenever you're like coaching them, that sort of aspect?
Absolutely. I love supporting other writers. I've been so lucky to get to soak up mentorship and experience from so many people in the field. And I've hit a point in my career where anything I can pass on to another writer to shorten their journey is what I want to be doing, right? So I work with new writers, I work with established writers, I work with youth, I work with seniors, I work with peers, I work with all kinds of writers and all kinds of mediums. And the thing that is true for all of them, this is what I tell everybody when you're sitting down to write, you tell the truth, you don't give up, and you have fun.
Mhm.
Because if you tell the truth, then if people connect with their work, they're connecting with who you are and you're having a more meaningful connection. If you don't tell the truth, if you write something that's fake, someone might still connect to it, but you won't have that deep satisfaction of really like being known and being honest in that way. It's so much more meaningful if you can write the truth. So tell the truth and don't give up. A lot of writers get discouraged or they won't finish or they think, oh, it's not good enough. If you have those feelings, it doesn't mean that you have to stop. It doesn't mean it's not good enough. It just means don't give up until you get something you love. Keep
Mhm.
writing until you get something that you love. And that doesn't have to do with other people's approval. That just has to do with you.
Yeah.
So tell the truth and don't give up and have fun because you know nobody's making you do this. If you are not getting joy out of this experience, if you are not finding reward, you're not going to keep going. You're going to give up. So let it be rewarding, let it be joyful. And that doesn't mean stay away from heavy topics, from serious things. You know, if you watch kids play, they play about the most important things in their life. Play is a way of working through the totality of the human experience. So have fun doesn't mean make everything a joke, right? But if you have fun, if you allow yourself to enjoy writing, if you get actual pleasure from your process, then you're going to be unstoppable. You're never going to quit and you're just going to improve and improve and improve. And you're going to be able to give your readers, give your audiences the most. So I tell everyone at every level, tell the truth, don't give up, have fun.
Very well said, very well said. And I feel like a lot of those components can be applied, I've especially like to sort of younger singers and other mediums in terms of, especially for, opera, like often it's kind of heard it's a marathon, it's not a sprint, it's definitely sort of a you're in it for the long haul. So I think that it's very well said that, you have to just continue and you have to just continue working at it and you have to have fun or you have to have fun in the work or else what's the point of doing it if you're not having fun? Um, yeah. So what past project, either recently or in the past, are you pretty passionate about that you'd like to highlight?
Oh, well, I've been so okay, so I'm thrilled right now because an art song that I wrote is on two commercial releases this
Oh,
year. And to hear
congratulations.
yeah, two interpretations of the same thing um is like such an amazing experience and such a rare moment in my career. I'm so happy about it. So the song is called Woman Walking, and it's about it's a modern woman walking through the city streets, kind of a flaneur, discovering what's around the corner, what's in the sky. And it's about her internal experience of walking in the world. And the composer, Cohen, who I worked with, she's how I got into all of this. She's my sister. She's a lifelong collaborator. And to be able to work with her and create something is really special. And both of the albums that it's on, one is Nell's Cantata, which is an evening length work of stuff about walking. And the other is, it's part of this project called 40 at 40, which is a singer commissioned a whole catalog of art songs to expand the available rep and to make some amazing world premieres for herself. And so the fact that it's not just on two releases, it's on two releases that were initiated by the artists, constructed from an artist's vision that I got to play a small piece in. That's like a thrill. So yeah, Woman Walking, it's streaming everywhere. You can look at 40 at 40. You can look at the cantatas called Sauntering Songs. Um, and if you go to my website, megancohen.com, there's links to all of it. So that's my plug is good. Yeah, come check it out. It's 5 minutes of just being in another world, in another
Last but
place.
certainly not least of my questions, why were you originally interested in siren songs?
Yeah. Um, the first thing that drew me in was getting to work with Monica. We met in a workshop where we were teamed with other people, and when she popped up in my inbox, it was such an exciting moment. We met in a workshop that was facilitated by somebody who's based in Minneapolis and was in Madagascar, and it took all of that for us to meet on the internet. We're neighbors in the Bay Area. We're, half an hour away from each other. Sometimes you have to go the whole world around. So getting the chance to work with her, to be deeply immersed in her music and in that collaboration, and to just benefit from all of her depth and all of her wit, I was like, oh, of course this is a winning team. I want to be on that. And then when we got into conversation, she started talking about the subject matter. I went, oh, this is exactly the kind of project I'm passionate about. Female led, artist led, re-envisioning mythology, re-envisioning presence and story to move us into another direction. And then to say, okay, we have this opportunity not just to write an art song, which I, sometimes get to do, and not to have to carry an entire evening length opera, right? But to get to make a journey that's the size of a cycle, to get to have something that has progression and has momentum, but where you can experiment with how to hold these things together outside of a more traditional character-based narrative, ABC kind of journey, that was really compelling to me as a really, really expansive place to play. So the opportunity to work with Monica with all of her versatility and flexibility, and to start out with something that's really fun and has a lot of pop influence and a lot of play, and then go to some darker places, some stranger places, and have that opportunity to develop something really poetic together over the course of the cycle. All of that was like, sign me up. You know? Yeah, count me in.
Awesome, awesome. Well, we are very grateful to have you on the project, and I honestly like this is such a stacked team. Like I'm really grateful to be working with all of you guys, and I'm really excited to see what's next. I'm already digging into the sort of draft of the piece right now, and I'm just like loving Hot Plastic Love. I think that it's gonna be awesome to perform it, and it's gonna be awesome to just go through this entire process. So looking forward to it. All
I
right.
cannot wait. I cannot wait to hear and see you playing with that bubble wrap. When Monica popped up and was like, I want to do something with bubble wrap, I was like, okay, this is going to be an experience. So I cannot wait to see that become yours.
Yes, yes. I love creative staging. I love like just I love all those extended techniques and like let's just do get weird. Let's do something weird on stage. All right. Well, thank you so much, Megan. I really appreciate it. And yeah, looking forward to working further with you and stay tuned, all of you guys, for the show.
Yeah, cheers. See you in the next world, I guess.